Good evening, I'm Sally Hawkins. Thank you for tuning in to APWH News Network. Today we will be having a special broadcast for our viewers that will be focused on the Holocaust. First, I'd like to go live to hear the highlights on Adolf Hitler's speech on foreign policy. The speech is being spoken in German, but there will be English subtitles.
Deutschland würde in Verwirklichung des großen
In 1938, Hitler, the British Prime Minister, the French Premier, and the Italian Prime Minister signed the Munich Agreement. The Munich Agreement gave Sudetenland, which is a region of Czechoslovakia, to Germany. In 1939, Hitler signed an agreement that allowed him to attack Poland without fear of Soviet interference. But Britain and France, Poland's allies, declared war on Germany even after signing the agreement. Hitler's aggressive foreign policy resulted in the outbreak of World War I. Before this were to happen, Germany suffered severe economic setbacks. They had to make payments required under the 1990 Treaty of Versailles. This led to the German government having to print money to make payments and also to repay the country's war debt. This resulted in many things. It resulted in inflated prices for consumer goods, caused economic chaos, and even food riots. That's all for German foreign and domestic policy. Now let's go to Jan Perkins with business. Jan.
Thank you, Sally. Hello, I am Jan Perkins, and I will be talking to you about business in the Holocaust. When the Nazis came into power in Germany on January 30th, 1933, an economic boycott against Jews of Germany occurred. On April 1st, 1933, the Nazis carried out the first nationwide planned action against Jews, a boycott targeting Jewish business and professionals. The national boycott operation organized by the local Nazi Party chiefs. It only lasted a day, but it marked the beginning of a nationwide campaign by the Nazi Party chiefs against the entire German Jewish population. A week later, the government passed a law restricting employment in the civil service to Aryans. Jewish government workers, teachers, and various other Jewish occupation workers were fired. German industry and business helped make the Holocaust a reality. Systematic mass murder was a highly complicated and profitable corporate venture. After decades of attempting to deflect attention from corporate complicity with the Nazi government and the SS, the German companies are finally beginning to acknowledge past misconduct. For example, 35,000 slave laborers who worked for IG Farben at Auschwitz. Although many leaders of government, industry, and business supported Nazi racial and military policies, their behavior during the Nazi era was largely governed by greed and opportunism. That's all for me today. Back to you, Sally.
Thank you, Jan. Now we're going to hear from Helga Bonqui. Helga is going to be talking to us about lifestyle and arts. Helga. Okay, that's good.
Thanks, Sally. Good evening. You're here with Helga Bonqui. Today we have discovered an eye into the life of German soldiers during the Holocaust. It was winter of 1942 to 43. They said the grimmest of struggles in a hopeless situation. Struggles of misery, hunger, cold, doubt, despair, and horrible death. They weren't prepared for the Russian winter. And another aspect of German lifestyle was training the kids to be soldiers. They had no choice but to attend Hitler-Juden youth classes in high school. They had to wear uniforms. When the weekend came around every Saturday, they had to go to the suburbs and play war games. When they played hide and seek, there was always this background of war behind them. Once the bombings began in Hamburg, all young boys and girls were taken to southern Germany in what they called a Kinderland, meaning children's camp. At the age of 15, they had to go to Luftwaffe to shoot at Allied planes. Then once they turned 16, some were captured by British and became prisoners of war until June of 1945. During the time they were captured, their watches were taken and they were sometimes beaten. However, they were not beaten often. This is just a very brief look on the Germans, and now here we are with Sally Hawkins.
Helga? Thank you, Helga, for that magnificent report. Next, we have Josie Jones with sports. Batter up!
Nice hit, Sally. Good evening, everyone. I'm Josie Jones, and this is your sports broadcast. The 1936 Olympics, otherwise known as the Nazi Olympics, had quite the opening ceremony with all the parading, raising of the rings, athletes warming up, and Adolf Hitler's speech. I don't know where to look. Leading gold medalist Jesse Owens stole the show with his athleticism. 4 gold medals. Team USA must have been extremely proud. Following Jesse was Konrad Frey from Germany with a total of 6 medals. 3 gold, 1 silver, 2 bronze. The man is one heck of a gymnast, if I do say so myself. In other news, the 2015 Women's World Cup is going on right now. Canada took the win over China yesterday at a very close game. Following them is the Netherlands with the dub over New Zealand. Norway beat Thailand at ease with a score of 4-0. Finally, my favorite game of the weekend was Germany against Ivory Coast. Germany absolutely annihilated Côte d'Ivoire. That was French if you didn't know. There were 2 hat tricks. Tune in tomorrow for a recap of tonight's games. Sweden versus Nigeria, Cameroon versus Ecuador, US versus Australia, and Japan versus Switzerland. Back to you, Sally.
Whoa! That was a great pun back, Josie. Next up, we will hear an investigative story from Patricia Biggums.
Thank you, Sally. Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Biggums, and boy, do I have a lot to tell you today. First, I have a story from Herman Franklin. He witnessed killings in Dubno in 1942. Quote, I saw a pile of shoes, about 800,000 pairs, great heaps of underwear and clothing. Without weeping or crying out, these people undressed. The people, completely naked, climbed down a few steps, cut in clay walls, and stopped at a spot indicated by SS men. Facing the dead and wounded, they spoke softly to them. Then I heard a series of rifle shots. I looked in the ditch and saw their bodies contorting, their heads already insected, seeking in the corpus beneath. The blood flowed from the nape of their necks. I was astounded not to be ordered away. But I noticed 2 or 3 ununiformed postmen nearby. A new pitch of victims approached the place. They climbed down into the ditch, lined up in front of the previous victims, and they were shot. This is a terrible thing to witness and a horrible thing that is going on in this world. Now, I got a quote from Jay Block and Malika Duchter from Rescuers. Burton Annie Percher, who hid 37 Jews in their pharmacy in Hugsman in Amsterdam, Siberia in 1942. Isn't it good to know that there was some people who was willing to risk their lives during this horrible thing? Another rescue story was found in Eastern Europe, rescued by rightnesses. There were hideouts or bunkers under houses, cowsheds and barns. Threats of death hung over the Jews' heads as long as they stayed. The rescuers' lives was terrorized too. It was a struggle to provide food to the Jews. This is the end of the story of the investigation. More will be coming. Back to Sally.
Thank you, Patricia. We, as the whole crew of APWH News Network, thanks you for tuning in to this special broadcast. Signing out.